Close to 50,000 learners dropped out of school in 2024, with teen pregnancies, marriage and financial constraints being cited among the reasons, the Ministry of Primary and Secondary Education Statistic Report says. A total of 15,809 learners dropped out of primary school in the country, with boys accounting for the major number at 8,668, while 7,141 girls dropped out. The major reason for boys dropping out of primary school was cited as absconding, accounting for 45.35%.
In secondary school, a total of 33,746 learners dropped out of school, with girls constituting a bigger chunk of 19,189 dropouts, while boys stood at 14,557. Among male and female dropouts, the most common reason is financial constraints, accounting for 46.27%. Other reasons cited for girls dropping out of both primary and secondary schools are pregnancy and early marriages.
150 learners dropped out of primary school because of marriages, and 109 dropped out due to pregnancy. In secondary school, 4,561 girls dropped out because of marriages, while 3,324 fell pregnant and dropped out. 232 boys dropped out because of marriages, while 44 boys dropped out on pregnancy-related issues. Now, looking at these statistics, Tafara, it's actually alarming, the amount of young children are being forced into marriages, and our young girls as well are getting pregnant before they actually finish their education. And you kind of start wondering, financial constraints, is education becoming so expensive? But it is a right for every child to have that education. And, you know, sometimes poverty is also one of the factors that leads to early child marriages as well. I don't know what your points are on this issue, but I feel it's just too alarming, and we really need to get on top of this situation.
It's too alarming, I agree. I think something needs to be done now, sooner rather than later. You want to have an ideal situation where children who are in school, primary and secondary education, they are fixated on school, on learning, but these numbers, thousands and thousands, you have 109 pregnancies. I think that's too much. I'm trying to think and possibly fathom what it is that could be the major drivers why kids are getting pregnant and having such numbers.
Yeah, you know, so look, what I was actually saying, that it is actually a bit of a worry to have primary school, and you start thinking, you just ask, what are some of the reasons? And I think sometimes it's also peer pressure. You know, one child can be indulging in sexual relations, and then they'll go and say, hey, have you experienced this? This is what me and my boyfriend were doing. Or it's an issue of even just boredom. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's boredom, and you know how sometimes you also hear the issues, go to strikes. So now when teachers strike or whatever it is, they have more time at home, and parents need to work kind of to the kumunda, whether they're in the rural areas or not. And you know, sometimes even in the rural areas, and then you know the girls are sakura, and then party time, something can happen and take place. So at the end of the day, it is actually an alarming situation where I think even parents should probably come together, as well as school heads, the ministry, come together to really help curb this issue that's really becoming quite a worry in the whole country.
Absolutely. Look, I'm trying to think, when these child marriages are happening, or rather, let's put it in quotes, the child marriages. I mean, is it child marriages among themselves as the kids, or it's people like me saying that I have a wife, and that wife is a child?
Yeah.
Who's still enrolled in school, who is underage? Is that what's happening?
So
could us who are expected and entrusted to be more responsible in our society, are we not the ones who are actually taking advantage of our kids?
That's a very true point. And you know, funny enough you say that. There is an example, a friend of mine, her brother actually did that with a younger girl, and it was actually quite sad, because she then said, we had to make him marry this girl, otherwise he was going to be arrested for rape, because the girl was young. So at the end of the day, she's like, we look at this young girl and we're just like, oh my goodness, but we have to take care of them, take care of her, even put her through school. So I mean, it's those situations really, Tafara, that we actually have to look at. But I do understand we do have a guest who's coming in the second hour.
Yeah, we do have a guest from Childline.
Yeah.
Who's going to be I think we're going to be talking more about
Yeah,
this
the situation. So much. So much.
Yeah, he will be
unpack.
on the line.
He won't be physically present, but he will be on the line. And these are some of the questions that we really need to tackle. And our social media handles are open right now if you are watching, so you can send some questions through as to what you want to understand about how the situation can be well curbed in our country.